Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. Thank you for staying tuned. Of course, we have our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, in the house tonight. The second appearance on Newsmaker Live since his re-election into government. And we've been having a very interesting discourse so far. We want to talk about other things happening recently. Last week or this week? Was it last week? You introduced the VAT.
Announced a date for VAT.
Right. You announced the date for VAT September 1st.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us what went into
the choice
of that date to implement VAT.
Okay, there are several factors that went into the selection of that date, and I'll itemize them for you. There's one in particular that I need to explain in detail because it is singularly important. You will recall the initial exchanges over VAT between our party when we were in opposition and the former government. I think you will also recall that in our blueprint for growth, we indicated that once we got into office, we'll have no choice but to introduce VAT, but we indicated to the exceptions that yes, we'll maintain the policy of having a basket of goods that is rated, that is to say, VAT will not be imposed on these goods, and also to that there will be deferral of any VAT on water and electricity until there is a mechanism in place that protects consumers in relation to these services. That for us is a very big issue. Right, so we had committed ourselves. Now, the former government, as you may recall, had given commitments to international agencies that it would introduce VAT this financial year. Commitments were given to the IMF, commitments were given to the World Bank. And I don't know if you recall a statement made by the former Attorney Generals, then Senator Lorenzo Williams, to the effect that VAT would come this year. And I believe, and I hope somebody can confirm this, that he suggests around April this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but he did indicate that VAT would come into effect this year. Now, so that we have had those obligations. The second critical factor, as I explained, has to do with the financial state of the country. Our position was that we needed to ensure that the economy was relatively secure, that there were signs of incipient growth, and that we believe that the time is about ripe to do so. We have a huge fiscal deficit to deal with, but at the same time, we think that the economy is beginning to show some incipient signs of growth. I should, however, caution that the economy did not grow by 4.4% as claimed by the former Prime Minister. That is now established beyond doubt, beyond reasonable doubt. And at the appropriate time, I will clarify that. So that, in a sense, what we are seeing now, as I indicated, some little shoots of growth. Clearly, they would require watering and nourishment to continue to push the economy, because what this economy needs is growth. It is true that we have a huge debt overhang. We're carrying a big debt burden, but one way of helping to mitigate the increases in the debt is to get as much growth as possible. So whatever we do, we have to balance two things. The need to try to manage that debt portfolio, contain it, but at the same time we go for growth. The third factor that influenced us about the choice of date, and I want to explain this very carefully. Curiously, it has to do with CARICOM. St. Lucia, over the last couple of years, 5, 6, 7 years, has been heavily criticized by CARICOM because of the environmental levy. Countries such as Trinidad, Jamaica, I think even Guyana, complained bitterly that the environmental levy was unlawful. And the reasons were simple. The environmental levy was imposed on all goods coming into St. Lucia, imported into St. Lucia. And these countries were complaining that manufacturers in St. Lucia who produce goods for the domestic market did not have to pay the environmental levy on the goods that they produce. The result was that the environmental levy was discriminatory. In my respectful view and in my judgment, as indeed is the judgment of others who have looked at the issue, if we had been hauled before the CCJ, we would lose. And Trinidad and those other countries were hot on our heels, and in fact had reached the point where they had become so frustrated with St. Lucia and its unwillingness to deal with the issue, had threatened to take St. Lucia before the Caribbean Court of Justice. In fact, there was a meeting of COTED in Guyana quite recently, which was attended by the Minister of External Affairs and the Minister of Commerce, and they had to mount a very stout defense, explaining that there were fiscal changes on the way, which at the end of the day will do away with the environmental levy. Of course, your humble servant was responsible for the environmental levy.
Right, I was just going to come to
my tenure.
And let me just ask you
sure.
right now, while you're on it, what was the thinking then, introducing that environmental levy?
Well, the truth of the matter, that didn't enter into the equation, because we were concerned primarily with financing solid waste disposal and solid waste management operations throughout the length and breadth of the country. So far that we have done a good job in raising the kind of revenue that is needed to deal with that. But of course it did not enter our contemplation at the time that it may have been inconsistent with our commitments to CARICOM and inconsistent with the treaty. What is clear, and let's not forget that I had the responsibility of managing CARICOM's case before the Caribbean Court of Justice in relation to the matter with Trinidad Cement Limited.
Yes.
So I had the actual experience there, and I became even more convinced that we could not continue to operate with the environmental levy, and something had to be done. There was a meeting of COTED, therefore, and we were in a position recently to say, look, there are going to be a range of changes at the taxation level, and VAT would be accommodated within the context, the environmental level would be accommodated within the context of those changes, and we hope that those changes could be introduced in September. So the fact is that if St. Lucia does not move quickly to deal with the environmental levy, then we could well have been hauled before the CCJ by other countries of CARICOM. A similar fate has also met the security tax enacted by the former government. You recall that last year, was it last year? Yes, last budget statement by the then Minister of Finance, Stephenson King, the government imposed a security tax, ostensibly to make monies available for the police to enable them to carry out their functions. They delayed the tax largely because I think of for electoral reasons. They were scared to introduce it. Although the opposition at the time never really criticized it because it was earmarked for law and order. So what has happened is that since initial steps were taken to introduce, again Trinidad and Tobago complained. Again they threatened us to take us before the CCJ. Again CARICOM told us that it was unlawful because it was a similar tax to the environmental levy, because it was being taxed, what was being taxed were imports coming from CARICOM and elsewhere, but no similar tax was placed on our local manufacturers. So in making decisions, even about a thing like VAT, you have to take into context what is happening around you and what is happening regionally. The fourth factor that we took on board in deciding on that date was in fact the initial preparations. And I just wanted to make a point here. The information that was presented to us indicated that a VAT office, implementation office, was established several months ago. They had held numerous consultations with stakeholders. Obviously, none of these consultations were ever complete, but consultations were held.
Right.
And the government was extremely concerned that we didn't spring VAT on the public in the sense that, you have a budget in April or in early May, whatever the date is, and I will finalize that date very soon. And then you just simply announce VAT for September the 1st. We felt that we had a responsibility to give sufficient lead time to begin to prepare the public, to begin to sensitize individuals both in the productive sectors and in the community as a whole that VAT will be introduced. Because you see, introducing VAT has its own challenges, very unique challenges. It is true that we can learn the lessons of St. Vincent, of St. Kitts of Grenada, of Dominica, of Trinidad, of Barbados. All those examples are there before us, but there will always be challenges that are unique for us.
Right.
So we have to make the kinds of adjustments and the kind of preparation that is vital. And I'll tell you this, the process of dialogue is incomplete. We do have some outstanding issues that we need to resolve. There are concerns that the manufacturers have, particularly in relation to the fact that with VAT they may have to pay the VAT rate upfront and then recoup subsequently. We have to resolve that with them. Then also there is a tricky issue of the tourism sector, whether you're going to go with 2 VAT rates or 1 VAT rate, or really what is the correct level at which you should cast VAT. And I'm hoping to have discussions, as I indicated in the press release, that we would have discussions with other sectors so as to share ideas and come to some kind of definitive position. But I also wanted to say this. Sometimes the temptation is to feel that the responsibility of discussions lies solely on the government, meaning that the government must take the initiative. I guess government does have a responsibility because government has to implement public policy.
Right.
But on the other hand, I want to take the opportunity to say to the sectors, to say to the public, that if any community wishes a briefing on VAT, then they are welcome to alert us, and it will be arranged. And one good thing is that in the last couple of days, I've had the opportunity to listen to the views that is being expressed, to the anxieties, the concerns. And again, it's a good thing that the announcement came at the time that it did, because you now get a chance to evaluate all of those responses, and of course, to have to prepare your own, responses to the issues that are publicly raised. I think that's a very good thing, and I'm glad that it is happening, or it has started to happen in this way.
Now, VAT seems to be a bad word.
Yes.
In certain quarters. We heard the Chamber of Commerce this week coming out to say that they are not ready for VAT. There's there's need for more consultation. But you, as well as I know, the issue of VAT is one that has been raised since you were in office the last time. So it's nothing new. It's something that we should have been preparing for all along. What really do you think are the concerns of the Chamber of Commerce as far as VAT is concerned and implementing VAT?
Well, I have heard the Chamber say publicly that they support VAT in principle. So it's not a situation that the Chamber, to their credit, is opposed to VAT. But as you indicated, they are raising issues of timing and preparation. I just want to give a bit of background to this, Clinton. The information presented to us, and I say information presented to us because that's what we inherited, suggested that some 733 meetings with stakeholders and individuals and groups were held by the VAT Implementation Office, that is prior to the assumption of office. And they have given me a list of groupings there, and I'll just share them with you without commenting or verifying absolute accuracy. They said they had consultations with the Chamber of Commerce, the Manufacturers Association, St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association, Bar Association, Vendors and Dry Goods Association, Taxi Association, Committee of Permanent Secretaries, Water and Sewage Company Management Team, Petroleum Dealers Association, residents of Etang, residents of Fort Saint-Jacques, residents of the Gros-Islet constituency, residents of Castries North constituency. So these are some of the groupings. Obviously, this is far from perfect, far from complete.
Right.
That is why I issued an invitation. I said, listen, if you have issues, you can invite us, and we'll be more than happy to send a team to chat with you and to talk with you. But the reality is that nearly everywhere you're going to introduce VAT, there will always be concern about the dates of implementation. And we have learned from the experience of other countries. There are some countries that have introduced VAT within a 3-month window. We are not, because we are taking on board the background of exchanges, of dialogue that has taken place. But of course, I'll be the first to say that we need to complete our dialogue and discussion with some key sectors. And I hope that we will be able to meet the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association in the next couple of days, so too the Chamber of Commerce and any other entity that wishes to dialogue with us at this point.
I have some more questions about VAT, but we'll take a short break right now. We'll do for a break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about VAT and other issues facing our country when we continue with our Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, right after this.